This podcast is presented by Win City Sports.
What up? Welcome back to Cedric's Combat Corner number 40. I am your host, Cedric Ben. Today on the Triple C's podcast, we'll be going over last week's main event for the World Super Featherweight title between the champion Jamel Herring and challenger Jonathan Oquendo. Just to give you a little brief background on each fighter, starting with the champion, Jamel Herring started his pro career in 2012. His current record is 22 wins and 2 losses with 10 KOs. So not known for a power puncher, more of a technical mover. He represented the U.S. at the 2012 Olympics at 141 pounds. Outside of boxing, he actually served 2 tours in Iraq for the Marines. So you know he keeps himself in shape even when he's not getting ready for a fight. And another side note about this guy, not only did he test positive for corona, but not once but twice did he test positive for COVID and fought back, and obviously he was healthy enough to compete last Saturday. Now for the challenger, Jonathan Oquendo from Puerto Rico, a little bit older, started his pro career in the early 2000s. A record of 31 wins and 7 losses with 19 KOs. And this was his second shot at the super featherweight title. Now, moving on to the actual fight. It was a tough fight while it lasted, the 9 rounds that it lasted for. The champion held his title. Oquendo got disqualified for numerous headbutts, which I don't personally think were intentional. It's just that the wild brawling style that Oquendo fights in, he ended up, butting heads a couple of times. And in the 9th round, Herring said that he couldn't continue, so they had to go to the ruling, which was a disqualification because of that. Now, going into that 9th round, I actually had the champion Herring winning all rounds, but this is a case where the numbers don't exactly reflect what the fight was. Yes, I did score each round for Herring, but it was a lot closer than what the scorecards, what my scorecards say. Every round was close because of the brawling style of Oquendo and the technical style of Herring. Someone whose opinion I really respect, Andre Ward, he had the fight scored a lot different than me. He gave the first round to Oquendo and also gave him the last 3 rounds. Like I said, I don't agree with that, but again, it was close. Definitely was close. So starting with Oquendo first, his style, his brawling type of style, he thinks more offense than defense. He doesn't mind taking 2 or 3 of yours to give you 2 or 3 of his power punches. The thing about a fighter like Oquendo, if he fights an opponent with his type of style, that's when you'll get one of those classic fights for the crowd, like Arturo Gatti versus Mickey Ward or Diego Corrales versus Jose Luis Castillo. But if you're fighting a highly skilled boxer, then that might take away from the excitement and make it more of a technical fight, which is what Herring was attempting to do. And he actually was doing it. His number one I shouldn't say downfall. Like I said, he still won every round. But the one thing that he was really missing was the accuracy. Simply the accuracy, because he was doing all the right things. He was throwing all the right punches that you should if someone's coming at you like that, attempting all the right things. He had good footwork, trying to step to the side. But even with the footwork, he was doing all the right things, but it just wasn't accurate. A few times, and it happens sometimes when an orthodox fighter fights a southpaw, because your front feet are so close to each other. Sometimes they end up getting tangled up when you're trying to step to the side, and that happened a few times. But again, if you're highly skilled, them little technical things, you should be on point with that. So again, Herring was doing all the right things. He just was not accurate, except for the 3rd round. Herring landed a picture-perfect uppercut as the person's coming in. That's one of the uppercut itself is one of the hardest punches to land, especially clean, especially the timing of it, to let someone come charge at you and to have the confidence to stand there and to perfectly time it, to land it on the chin. It was beautiful. Almost as good as a few weeks ago when Povetkin dropped Dylan White with a nice left uppercut. So that's what happened. Oquendo in that third round just walked right into it, charging forward. But again, and then that was the last time that Herring was able to land it. He was attempting to do it, but it would be a couple inches to the right or a couple inches to the left. He'd had good footwork and back up from a distance and throw a nice long straight left, but again, it would be too high or just barely miss him. So again, and those are the things that kept Oquendo making it a close fight. And in that fifth round, when a serious headbutt happened between the two guys, Herring got the worst of it. He got a big gash over his eye. But that, looking at the replay, you can see that would have been avoided because Herring threw a left uppercut, the same uppercut that he dropped him with in the third round. He threw that same punch. The difference was he missed it. And as he missed it, Oquendo was able to come forward and throw two punches, and their heads came together. And that's how that bad cut came over Herring's eye. And that's something that I want to focus on just briefly right now, was headbutts in boxing. Whether it happens on purpose or by accident, it happens sometimes. And it's up to the referee to determine whether you did it on purpose or not to take a point away. I just assume that most of the time it's by accident when you get a butt of heads and a bad cut happens. Because if you think about it, if you're doing it on purpose, if I'm purposely trying to use my head against you, there's a good chance I'm gonna make myself get cut or even a concussion. So it doesn't really make sense for you to purposely do that. The only time that I can clearly remember seeing someone blatantly trying to do that is Victor Ortiz when he tried to do that to Mayweather. But other than that, 99% of the time it's by accident. And again, it's the middle of a fight, punches are flying, might be a knockdown or two, and it's an action-packed fight. It's hard for the referee to determine, whether it's done by accident or not. So sometimes there's cases where referees don't call nothing, even though you might think you're repeatedly getting hit with headbutts. If the referee doesn't see it, he can't call it. The referee's not going to call something just because you said so if he doesn't see it, he or she, sorry. And then sometimes the boxer loses his cool. The number one best example I could give of this, of a fighter getting frustrated because the referee's not doing anything about alleged legal blows, is Mike Tyson versus Evander Holyfield. Everyone by now knows the story of when he bit off his ear, but I don't think too many people know the reason why. Well, Tyson was psycho to begin with, but during that fight, he was complaining about Holyfield giving him headbutts the whole time, but the referee wasn't doing anything about it. And then, the frustration just boiled over and he just took his ear off. And so that was the case in this match here with Jamel Herring and Jonathan Oquendo. Simply just had trouble dealing with Oquendo's brawling style. I already mentioned before there was a bad headbutt that resulted in a cut in the fifth round, and then I believe it was either the seventh or eighth, a second bad headbutt happened, and Herring went back to his corner and told the referee that he couldn't see. So immediately the referee had to call the fight off and state the reason why. I'm not sure if it was just automatic disqualification or if they actually went. No, it was an automatic disqualification because you couldn't continue because of the illegal blows. So, of course, a lot of people were angry, especially on social media, calling Herring a quitter and this and that. Me, personally, I never call any fighter a quitter, even if they decided to finish the match early, if they looked like they could have continued, because two things. You don't know how serious their injuries are, especially if it's inside the head. And you don't know what's going on, like what they're thinking, what their thought process is. Again, more than a couple of years ago, when Mike Tyson fought Andrew Galata, Galata quit in the second round. People went crazy on him, calling him this and that. Well, it turns out the guy had after a couple of days when he went to the hospital, it turns out the guy had a broken eye socket and something else broken in his face. But people didn't know that at the time because visually he didn't have any signs. He didn't even have a cut on his face. So people didn't know. But later on you find out that. And then again, even if there is no injuries, remember, you only have one brain. You can't come back from that. So if you're in a match and you know that you're overmatched and you tried your hardest and nothing is working, I'm not gonna fault you for keeping your brain damaged, not just throwing yourself out there just for the entertainment of people. You got to think about your life over your career. The people got to think about these things when you insult these fighters for quitting. I never insult a fighter if he decides to hang it up for that match. So yeah, there you have it. Jamel Herring retains his 130-pound super featherweight title. And next up, it's looking like Mr. Carl Frampton from England. Of course, everyone is judging by this past performance from Herring and saying that Carlton will have his way with him. I think it's still going to be close. Well, it depends how mentally prepared Herring is. Again, I mentioned before, skills-wise, he's there. I just want to know, and heart-wise, he's there too. Remember, this guy was in the U.S. Marines. He served 2 tours in Iraq. This guy had been to war. So obviously he's not afraid of physical confrontation. So I think it's just a mental thing. As I said before, mental and technical stuff. Mentally just staying focused on your technique. Because like I said, he was doing all the right things against the brawler type of fighter. Just needs to be a little bit more accurate with those punches. The same uppercut that he landed on the chin, he could have landed that a few times. So just staying focused, working on those things, staying sharp technically and mentally, physically and mentally. And that class with Carl Frampton should be good. All right, now for your training focus of the week. How to work on accuracy on a moving target. With your coach or just with a regular training partner. If you have a pair of hand wraps that you can have, whether your brother or sister hold for you or just one of your friends, they don't even know how to need to hold them properly. They just need you can just show them how to hold them basically, and then just have the person move around while you try to hit the moving target. Obviously not running, but just moving around at a controlled pace. But you have to move around in your stance. The person that's holding the pads, they don't have to move. They don't have to stay in their boxing stance. But you have to stay in your boxing stance and either cut the person off or follow them or back up to maintain your distance and land accurate punches on the move. The other way to do that on the bag is to simply not just hit the bag when it's just standing up and down, like push the bag so that it's moving, or push it in a circle motion where it's moving all over the place. And then you have to use your footwork again to land those punches properly, not just standing there and watching it swing from side to side until it stands in one spot for you. Just like in a match, you have to adapt with your footwork to either cut the person off, or if the person's coming after you, to maintain that distance, whether it's backing up for 2 steps or stepping laterally to the left or to the right. Yeah. There you have it. Thank you very much for listening to the Triple C's podcast, number 40. I'll be back with number 41 soon, Ugas versus Ramos. All right, thank you very much. Hit me up if you have any questions or suggestions, any social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of that, at Cedric Sports. And shout out to Win City Sports. All right, peace.
1, 2, 3, smack that thumbs up for this video. Smack it, baby!